Welcome to the Rabbi and the Shrink. This is Dr. Margarita Gurri, the Shrink, and my favorite rabbi,
Mr. Goldson.
And the good rabbi and I are delighted to have with us the fit pharmacist, Dr. Adam Martin. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to see both your smiling faces.
Well, it's good to be seen. One of the things that you and I met, I think the same way the rabbi met on a Zoom meeting for something, I forget what, and we were both taken with that you were doing something different than other people doing. So how did you get to being the fit pharmacist? Tell us about your journey and your intentions for that.
Beautiful question. I started off as a depressed person, believe it or not. Yes, I know the smile is bright. But the whole reason that led me into fitness and to pharmacy was when I was in high school. My mom got diagnosed unexpectedly with stage 4 colon cancer. And I did not know it, didn't know it at the time, but she was given less than 6 months to live.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, thank you. That led me into what you could call a depressed state because I didn't have any tools. I never dealt with anything like that. And it just came out of the blue.
Were you, you were grieving, actually?
Yes, correct. Yeah, that was the beginning of that process. So what led me into that was I had some friends, and back in the day, I was very scrawny, skinny kid, low self-confidence. I was bullied most of my life, all this stuff. So then you add that onto it, and it was time for a change. So I had a couple friends that were working out after class, and I just said, can I join in? And I got what you call the iron bug. I got bit by the iron bug. I got really into lifting because that really led into healing. It led into my own therapy at the bar, not down in the corner, but in the gym. But also it led to self-confidence, and it led me out of this focus of just trying to survive into how can I thrive? And that's really the main shift that put me into that. And that's how it started in high school. But then when I got into college, I started to realize there was this symbiotic relationship. Like, if I went out, partied, and didn't sleep well, my workouts would suffer, and so would my studies. But if I did what I knew I was supposed to do, because we all do that, right? We never do the opposite of what we're supposed to do.
Never.
But when I did what I was supposed to do, ate well, slept well, I'd get stronger in the gym, I'd focus in the classroom. So right around that time is when Instagram began. I had no clue what it was. I thought, Instagram, what is that, a hipster? Like, is that how much a hipster weighs? That was the old joke back in the day. But my friend said, you need to make an Instagram. I said, well, what do you do? And you pick a name that represents something that is what you embody. I'm like, well, I'm passionate about fitness. I'm a pharmacist, passionate about helping people. I'll become the fit pharmacist. So that's really where it started. If I whittle it down in as brief of time as possible.
Yeah, there's something about that story, Adam, that I think is really instructive for many of us. Without going into my own background, I got to college as a real basket case. And my first trimester there, I took a course in Philosophy 1, and we studied, among others, Sartre. Now, as a religious person, I don't agree with Sartre on much, maybe anything, except one point that he makes is one of his real fundamental principles is existence precedes essence. And that means that first we are, and then we are what we are.
Yes.
And he really felt that we can define ourselves and create ourselves as we choose, which is really what you're describing. You were in a state where you weren't happy with yourself, you weren't confident, and you found a way of channeling your energy, of doing something to build yourself up and really transformed yourself, created your own identity, your own reality. I think we can all do that, especially when it comes to ethics, which is our topic here. We can choose to be good.
Yes.
We can choose to be responsible. And I think that's exactly what you're modeling with your story.
And I really appreciate that point, Yonason. And I think in all of us, if we can be honest with ourselves for just a moment, we all have areas in our life and times in our life where we're not satisfied. And it's actually a gift, because the only two reasons we do anything is to seek pleasure or to avoid pain. So when we have that pain, it's a stronger driving force to take action, which then results in a different or more optimal outcome. So we have these ideas of change, but how many people talk about what they want, but they don't do anything? And the main point that really sticks with me is you can't think your way into a new level of acting. You must act your way into a new level of thinking, right? So how can we use and be resourceful with all of these things that are going on in our life, the good and the challenging, to use them as catalysts to become the man or woman of God that we were created to become? And the thing that I started to recognize through my journey is it became this ethical focus, this whole thing. Like, if you're going to be preaching to live a healthier life, you have to be preaching what you're practicing, taking a dose of your own medicine and leading by example. So I assumed that's what everyone did, but I learned quickly, because people didn't have to deal with that, immediate hardship. That's not saying other people haven't dealt with things way beyond what I've had to see, but it's saying, are you using that to your advantage as a catalyst for change? So it's, again, a choice that you need to make. So when I started to realize that people were, stuck in survival mode, they were gaining weight, getting stressed out, and really just not being able to thrive, it became very apparent that you can't help your patients if you're only trying to survive. But when you're in a state of thriving, that's when you're put in a mindset to really show up and not just give optimal care, but really give a different dose, give a hope. I call it becoming a hope dealer. That's the alter ego, I guess you could say, that I embody. So what became my mission is seeing people way more qualified than me who were stuck in this survival mode, and they started to get really hard on themselves. They fell into imposter syndrome and all these sort of things, and started to doubt their own integrity. So they would show up at a lower level, not be able to impact the lives of patients and people that were in their care. So that's really where my mission came from, is helping people to really flip the switch out of survival mode into thrive, so they can impact lives that they have the opportunity to impact on a daily basis wherever he or she may practice.
And that's where you got the ideas for your two books. The Pharmacist Survival Guide for Managing Stress and Fitting and Fitness, which I think is a great title. I checked it out a little bit. And the Gen Z Pharmacist, Dominate Pharmacy School and Script Your Dream Career. Although I think that from the description, I've not read that book, it sounds like scripting your dream career is for everyone, not just for pharmacists or people in pharmacy school. You've done a very good job of, I think, reaching beyond just pharmacists to people everywhere. So I think that's impressive.
Thank you very much. And I want to give a word of encouragement on that, because a lot of times people feel like, that they fall into that imposter syndrome. They feel like, I'm not there yet. I'm not capable. I'm not qualified to teach other people who are in need. I'm wait till I'm there. So I think if you realize how far you've come, your story might not be done. You might only be on chapter 5 of your, 3-series book, but recognize that there's people stuck in the preface, scared to start chapter 1, and you being in chapter 5 is an incredible asset to empower and equip people to go from chapter 1 to chapter 2. So I really feel that we all have a story, and we have a blessing that is not just for us, but it actually becomes a deeper blessing when we fall into that and equip others with what we've learned to help them through that process. And when we do that consistently, just like you said, we can add and expand that to areas outside of our niche once we become the go-to expert in that field.
In this time of COVID, I've seen many professionals get exhausted, and they don't have the imposter syndrome. What they have is I don't matter syndrome. They have compassion fatigue. Rabbi, what were you going to say?
Well, I heard a wonderful quote a few years ago from Beatrice Berry. She said, "Imposters don't suffer from imposter syndrome." Yeah, there's so much wisdom in that soundbite.
Neither do real people either, though. So I can see the real imposter saying, "Well, I'm because I'm real."
Oh, if I think, I'm on top of my game, I got this, I got nothing to worry about, maybe you should take a step back. Whereas if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is stretching ourselves, which is reaching for the next rung on the ladder, there's always going to be that sense of maybe I'm not ready yet.
Yes.
And that itself is an indication that I'm moving in the right direction. And the
Exactly.
process of doing that, which is a little uncomfortable, which I'm not quite sure of myself, that itself is going to help me move up, become more competent, and become less of an imposter. And that process takes us through life and leads to all kinds of success.
That's precisely it. And fear, we think, is something to avoid. But what is courage? Courage isn't waiting until fear's gone. Courage is moving forward in the face of fear. So it's not that fear's bad. It's the meaning that you're giving fear. So when you change, and I call it flip the script, because I love puns and I'm a pharmacist and I'm a dork, but I like that. But when you flip the script on how you're labeling fear, instead of something that's discomforting, what if it's actually a beacon for growth? So when you feel uncomfortable, when you feel fearful, you actually move towards that, because the antidote to fear is action. And the longer the time you give it, time is a fertilizer. So the longer time you give taking action on that fear, the longer it will grow. But the quicker you act, the less of a time that little fear has a time to grow into a monster. So spot on. I completely agree.
I love the fear as a beacon of growth. I think that's wonderful. So now, Rabbi, let's get to the main issue then. What does this have to do with ethics?
Well, what I've heard over and over again in medicine, in philosophy, and from you yourself, Adam, is that rather than waiting for there to be a problem, you just really addressed it in your approach to fear, rather than waiting for the problem to appear or to grow, try head off the problem before it becomes such a big problem, or before it becomes a problem at all. And of course, in medicine, we talk about wellness, we talk about prevention. And in business or in personal conduct, you can apply the same principle, can't you? Don't wait until I find myself in the midst of a crisis. Oh, we're on the brink of a scandal, we're on the brink of a financial failure, we're having levels of incompetency that we can't deal with prevention, projection, preparation. We can make sure that those little problems don't become big problems.
Yes.
So what are the first steps? Someone's out there, they're burned out, they're not feeling great about themselves, they want to do better in life. What do you suggest, Dr. Adam Martin?
First thing is to acknowledge it, not to, paint a picture like, oh, this will pass. Like, everyone's this way. This is okay. What you tolerate will continue. And regardless of what you're trying to change, regardless of its personal development, getting out of survival mode, increasing your finances, the first step to every change is awareness. And until you're real with yourself, until, again, back with the puns, until you give yourself a dose of truth, you're not going to be able to move forward. Because if you don't identify something as a challenge or a problem or something needs change, there's no reason you're going to take action on it. It's like, I don't know if you ever seen the meme of the dog drinking coffee in a room that's filled with flames. It's drinking coffee, the whole place is burning down, and the caption is, "This is fine." And a lot of people use that to define their work environment, because they feel like, oh, they look around. First thing is everyone else struggling. And for some reason, if everyone else is in the same boat, it's okay. But that doesn't mean that it's right, or that your feelings are not valid. So if you feel a dissonance, if you feel like you're meant for more, if you find yourself looking in the mirror and saying, did I really go to school just for this? Is this all there is? I thought I'd be farther ahead in life. If you acknowledge that feeling, you then give yourself such a gift, because what you resist persists and it will grow and fester. So if you really take that first step and say, like, this is not where I want to be, and I'm not okay with staying here, that will be the catalyst for you to start taking that next step. But I think so few of us are scared to, because to something you said earlier, Yonason, we tie our identity to it. And if we challenge our identity, it's a huge threat to our value, our worth, and all those other sorts of things. So I think it sounds simple, but oftentimes simple is not easy. So I think that's really the first step in that path, is just acknowledging I'm not where I want to be, and I know that I can be more, do more, achieve more, have a more fulfilling career. rather than just successful. Because if you're succeeding but not fulfilled, that's the ultimate failure.
I think that's a key point because many people develop metrics for success that have nothing to do with them feeling good about themselves or being
Yes.
good people. You cannot do good if your metrics for success counteract any efforts at goodness.
That's spot on. And I think one of the biggest metrics that's missing, especially in healthcare, is I call it the tickle factor. Are you able?
You know, you
Well,
can get in
I'm
trouble for
serious.
that. Let me hear this
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Are you able to smile at your work without being forced? So meaning like, are you able to laugh without being tickled? And that's really the question you got to ask. I mean, we can tickle you. We'll be in HR, and all that. And I don't advise that. So, don't do this, but you have to really ask yourself that question. And maybe just hearing that made you laugh for the first time in weeks, months, or years. Hopefully not. But is what you're doing bringing you joy, or are you waiting for someone else or some condition to be the only source of what makes you joyful? Because that is a clue that you are or either are not being fulfilled in what you do.
That's a really interesting observation. It's, as you say, it sounds simple, and I think it is simple, but many of us are in situations where we may have trouble finding the joy in what we're doing.
Yes.
I started my professional speaking business about 6-7 years ago, and I started hearing comments that I'd never heard before. People would comment on my smile, and I couldn't remember them ever having commented on my smile. Now, I liked teaching high school. I found it very rewarding, but it carried with it a certain amount of tensions and frustrations that I guess didn't let me fully experience the joy of what I was doing. And when I moved into a situation where many of those factors were no longer factors, I really subconsciously, I wasn't aware I was smiling, but it's, we have to find the things that make us smile.
Yes. I think a smile is so great because it's an outward reflection of an inner truth. You can't, you can fake a smile, but we can see right through that. But when you're doing something and you smile and you're not even aware of it, that's pretty majestic. And I have to say, you do have a dashing smile. So I'm not surprised that you got that compliment.
He does. His smile lights up the room. And plus, being a Cuban Catholic, shrink, I had never really seen that many rabbis that smiled a lot, And so it's nice to have a
Look at him
smile
laughing
rabbi.
at that comment. Because he knows that's the X factor. You're changing the script. You're changing a standard
Yeah.
for your own profession. And you're
Yeah.
giving others permission that it's okay because you are doing it. And I think that's such a huge, huge point. And it's part of your brand, if I can be so bold to say, is you are living your authenticity and you're owning all parts of you. I call it unapologetically owning your fire.
Yeah,
Because we
so
all have a light inside of us to share.
he's
So I
the-
just want to acknowledge you for that.
he's the hitchhiking, smiling rabbi
Okay, it's enough about me.
with years of growth. Well, but we're talking about branding, so
There's actually in the Jewish teachings over 2,000 years ago, one of the sages who is known for being strict and stern and demanding, he's the one who teaches us greet every person with a pleasant countenance. So that image of him as strict and stern is really not accurate. Yes, he was very demanding. Yes, he set high standards, but he could do that with a smile on his face.
Yeah.
And there's a more recent story about a student who was deeply involved in his studies and his personal development. And his rabbi came by, tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Your face is part of the public domain." So you want to be scowling and grimacing, do that in private. Nobody wants to look at that.
Well, and there's a healing factor with humor, as we all know, and with smiling and happiness. And some of it is also the trust factor. How do you trust a professional, whether it's a pharmacist, a rabbi, or a shrink, or a bartender, if we're going to add that in from the jokes, who doesn't somehow find their place in life enough to be able to have the confidence and the joy in what they're doing. And I think it adds a lot to trust.
It really does. And I have to say, as a pharmacist, laughter is the best medicine because it invokes joy from the soul. And it's really true. It diffuses everything. If you have someone that is in a really difficult time and, you know, they're stuck on that fixation, and you can not to make fun of them, but if you can get them to laugh in a genuine way, what will happen is it will totally interrupt their pattern. It will totally shift their focus. And once the laughing subsides, if you're good, it'll take a while. But once the laughing subsides, they'll say, what were we talking about again? And I'm like, oh yeah, you were telling me about how terrible life was. Oh, you know, it's true. Yeah. So it's a great way to shift someone's state and give that gift.
Absolutely. And for those of you who want to learn how to do that even better, the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor, AATH, that I belong to, AATH.org, has a bunch of research and practice stuff, and it's really fun. A bunch of fun professionals working on humor as something that is super important in terms of happiness and success in life and wellness. So I think that's great.
Well, it speaks to bedside manner too, doesn't it? I mean,
yes, I think
you can be a clinical technician of the highest order, but if you don't project some sort of warmth and show empathy, you're not going to be an effective doctor. I mean, I had to take my wife to urgent care sometime back, and she told me, this is the one we need to go to. And we came in there. Even as we're walking in the door, the receptionist smiles, knew exactly who we were from our appointment. That's and nice. Every person we encountered. And my wife, when she was being treated, asked, you know, can I ask you, you know, everybody here is so pleasant. Well, she happened to be talking to one of the managers, said, we only hire pleasant doctors. Said, yes, of course, we want them to be qualified. But when you come in and you've got a problem, the last thing you want is some grumpy person who is compounding whatever problem you're already dealing with. And, you know, it just sounds so fundamental, doesn't it?
I think so. Well, Rabbi, I think we've gotten to the point where we need the word of the day, and then we'll come back to Dr. Adam Martin, and we're going to ask you about takeaways. What are the takeaways that the listening or viewing audience can ponder? And Rabbi, what you got?
Well, you know, I usually try to choose a word that's a little bit unfamiliar. So I hope you're not disappointed with this one. The word is phreatophyte.
No, I'm not disappointed.
Phreatophyte, which is a plant having very long roots that reach down to the water table. And I chose this word early in our conversation because of something you said, Adam, that is very consistent with Jewish teaching, that we don't think our way to action, we act our way to thinking. And the sages teach that if a person, if his wisdom, I guess I should put this in the common pronoun form, if their wisdom is greater than their actions, their wisdom will not endure. But if their actions are greater than their wisdom, it will endure. And to what are they compared? A person whose actions exceed their wisdom, is compared to a tree with deep roots and moderate branches. Because if it's the other way around, a wind comes along, uproots the tree, it topples over. But if your roots are deep, then it doesn't matter how hard the wind blows. And roots are our actions, and the branches are our thoughts, our ideas. And so everything we do has to be focused on implementing our thoughts, our ideas, our feelings into positive actions. And if we do that, our actions will make our core values stronger. They'll help our thoughts become real, become rooted in the physical world. If we're just in the air all the time with ideas, that's never going to come to anything. We have to be rooted in reality, in action, and then our thoughts and our ideas can really soar.
It's a great word, and I think that fits what you've been saying, Adam. I think it's wonderful. So, sir, what takeaways do you have for our audience to ponder?
So I think one of the biggest things is, how do we get started? How do we, if we're not satisfied where we are, a lot of times we can be quiet and not take action because we feel shame. We're not supposed to feel this way. I don't want to be less than. I don't want to let my people down. I don't want my family to worry about me and think something's wrong. So there's all these things, because from a healthcare perspective, the core reason that we got into healthcare, regardless of your profession, is simply to help other people. And a lot of times the reason that self-care suffers is because we have this idea, this lie, that if I take care of myself, if I practice self-care, it's selfish. And there are times in your career where you will have to put that on the back burner, keyword temporarily. But if you turn it into a habitual action and almost like a martyrdom, what will happen is you will become the very thing that you got into to treat and prevent. And then you are leading from a place with his lack of integrity, which, whether it's conscious or subconscious, it will start to eat away at your potential, and you'll slip away from thriving to just trying to survive, knowing deep down within yourself that you're not living why you got into this in the first place. So you can't help people thrive if you're struggling to survive. So it's really that honest answer and question with you. So I think that the best way to redirect our focus and get answers is to ask quality questions, because the quality of questions you ask will directly determine the quality of life you live. So I want to leave with a few questions. Here they are. Who must I become to live a life worthy of the calling I have received? Looking at your past, a lot of times we feel we have to do all kind of stuff in order to get there. But oftentimes success leaves clues. And we all have moments of success where we were told you can't do that, where we thought that we couldn't do it, but we did it anyway, somehow. So instead of thinking this is outside of me, look within yourself. So ask yourself, what references or points of evidence do I have that allowed me to get to where I am, to defy the odds? So what references do I have that have allowed me to get to where I am and will help me to get to where I want to go? So that's looking at what you already have that's being resourceful with the work you've already done. Then to keep yourself accountable, and to Jonason's point, ideas are great, but actions are really what get us rooted. You have to look forward. And that question is, what references do I need to become the person I am called to become? So that literally asks, what is the one thing that I can do right now today to move the needle forward so that I am one step closer to that goal? And oftentimes we get discouraged with setbacks and whatnot, but there's a big takeaway that if you're struggling, if you feel like you're meant for more, if you've had a few punches and you feel like you're down, there's one truth I want you to know. As of right now, regardless of if you're listening to this today or re-listening to it years later, as of right now, you have successfully survived 100% of your toughest days. That is a fact. And the only way that's true is if you're able to listen to this right now. So if you have survived 100% of your toughest days, perhaps you can survive the next one too.
That's a beautiful perspective. Thank you very much. I think it's practical, and I felt it, as my grandchildren called it. I felt it in the feels. It was very nice.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Wow. Well, so how can people reach you, sir? Because they maybe want more of you. What's the best way to reach you?
The best way is actually on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. My handle is one word, The Fit Pharmacist. I also have a podcast that I dispense a episode once a week. That's been going on for 5 years. So if you like the deep talk about things that everyone struggles with, but nobody's talking about, with practical things you can actually do to move the needle forward, I highly recommend you check that out. That's on all podcast platforms, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, iTunes, all the things. It's The Fit Pharmacist Healthcare Podcast. I'm also on LinkedIn, Dr. Adam Martin, as well as on my Facebook page, the fit pharmacist.
And then the rabbi and I always have one last question, because we've seen so many professionals with a heavy heart. What do you do for fun these days?
Many a things.
Good.
So it's ironic. Most I like to pick things up and put them down. So I'm actually a competitive bodybuilder, lifetime drug-free. I know it's ironic being a pharmacist, but that is something that I do enjoy. Physical health, really getting involved with that, learning with personal development, psychology. The other thing I really love to do is dance, because if you think about it, in your career, whatever you're looking to do, you're always taking a few steps forward, but then life hits you and you have one step back. So if you look at it in a broad perspective, going through life, you're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Life's a cha-cha. Let's dance.
So you do ballroom dance, is it?
I do more hip hop freestyle, wherever the beat moves me to. But yeah, dancing in the car, that's my favorite thing.
Right.
I'm also a world-renowned singer in the shower, in the car. There's only 2 songs that people request that I sing. The one is called Not So Loud, and the other one is Far, Far Away.
And you shower in the car and sing. That's interesting.
I haven't tried that yet. That'll be Instagram worthy if I can pull that off. Probably police worthy too.
Well, that is very funny. Well, we're certainly glad that you came on to our podcast. I think you have a refreshing approach, and certainly the rabbi and I talk about the importance in ethics of feeling well,
Yes.
and setting the foundation that helps us make good choices over and over again, especially when life is a little complicated. So, Rabbi, you have some final words of the day, sir?
I think we've really hit on a critical mindset point here,
Yes.
which is to look ahead, plan ahead, and look for ways of bringing joy into our own lives, because then inevitably we'll spread it into the lives of others. So thank you for inspiring us, Adam, to look at ourselves and look at the world we live in a way that will make all of us more healthy.
Greatly appreciate that. And I love what you said. We want to help professionals feel well. And I believe that if we feel well, we can do well. And it's not about us. It starts with us. But when we can really feel well, we can go do well and then serve our purpose, which is to make a difference and inspire people to do the same in the world. So I really respect both of you for the platform that you have. It's an honor to be on, to be a part of that. I love what both of you are doing in your individual careers, but also collectively with this endeavor, which is phenomenal. So an honor to be here. An honor to be here. Thank you.
It's an honor to have you. So all of you out there who are having a dip in the joy or self-confidence or feeling good, take it as a beautiful invitation to ask those questions, and make yourself move forward in the world of happiness and success. Well, Rabbi, thank you for everything. Dr. Adam Martin as well.
Thank
we'll
you,
see you on the
doctors.
next episode of The Rabbi and The Shrink. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you for listening to The Rabbi and The Shrink, Everyday Ethics Unscripted. To book Dr. Red Shoe, Dr. Margarita Gurri, or Rabbi Yonason Goldson as speakers or advisors for your organization, contact them at therabbiandtheshrink.com. This has been a Dr. Red Shoe production.